Hello, and thank you for joining us on tonight's Ask Andrew show, Canada's first Facebook live streaming question and answer show for family law, that is. My name is Andrew Feldstein. I'm the principal of Feldstein Family Law Group. Both myself and our entire firm practice exclusively in the area of family law. We have offices located in Markham, Vaughan, Oakville, and Mississauga, and service basically the entire province of Ontario. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, David Brewster, and he's here to talk about what it's like to navigate through high conflict divorce. David was a former client of the firm, mine in particular, and he has experience both as a self-represented litigant when he hasn't been with the firm, and he actually, before he retained our firm, was a client at other firms. And he has successfully navigated a very high conflict divorce case that spanned 5 years. He's dealt with children transitioning to teenagers during a divorce. He's dealt with, as I said, high conflict, police involvement, travel motions, the Office of the Children's Lawyer, remarriage, issues with obtaining medical information. And the remarkable part of David's story is that him and his ex were able to turn this high conflict, tumultuous relationship into a healthy co-parenting situation. It has even been suggested that David and his ex host a TED Talk on how to effectively co-parent post-divorce with your ex and how they turned a horrible situation for the kids and them, quite frankly, into something that is very healthy and something that all of us divorced parents should really envy and give those other parents in high conflict hope of succeeding. So without further ado, David, I wanted to welcome you to the show and thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm happy to be here. It's much better to be here in these circumstances than how they would have been years ago from now.
Well, it's interesting because at the end of each of my shows, I invite people to reach out to us with a topic for the show. And that's exactly what you actually did. You reached out to me and you wanted to let me know how amazing things have been doing. And I have to say, in my business, we hear a lot of negative every day. And it's a real pleasure when you get to hear a story of triumph and success and that your kids are doing better. So I guess I'm wondering, from a prospective client's position and your experience, what should they be looking for first when they're hiring a lawyer in their divorce case?
So I've dealt with several different firms and a couple different lawyers over the period of time, over the 5 years or so. And I found lawyers can be classified into two types: those that serve the firm and those that serve the client. And what I found with your firm, and initially with your firm, I was with somebody else, Jason, who went on other things. But what I always found between you and these different associates was I got talked out of more arguments than I did to get talked into doing them. That most of the time I was giving a objective perspective on, no, Dave, you're in the wrong, or this and that. And there was way more times that you told me, don't do it. This isn't the fight you want to fight. You talked me down off the ledge way more than you ever said, no, this is something that you should deal with. And that told me that you weren't interested in serving the bottom line. You're interested in serving me the best way possible. And that's what resonated at the end of the day. That's why I ended up sticking with your firm over the others.
Well, it's an interesting point that you raised because a lot of clients, they can come in, and I say this to people all the time, if I really wanted to rev you up because I wanted to generate more fees, it really would be very easy to do because a lot of people are coming in ready to be revved up.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
And the reason why we do what we do is, like you said, we put our clients' interest first, but it's not just your interests we're putting first. If I rev you up and I go to court when I think it's completely unnecessary and a waste of your time, that's going to lead to more conflict with your ex and more problems for your kids and less money in your pocketbook. Everything about doing that is not in your best interest. Everything is flawed. Everything is wrong. So as lawyers, I think it's really incumbent on all of us to guide our clients to take reasonable positions. And if you're taking reasonable positions, the court may not always agree that you were being reasonable, but at least it's something you can say, you know what, I'm holding my head high. I did the right thing. And you want to be able to say you did the right thing by your kids at the end of the day as well. At least.
Yeah, it was the kids get The kids are the ones that get caught in the. I mean, for me, it would just cost me money, whatever. But it was the real harm was to the kids in the conflict, which I can't imagine how bad it would have been if I'd been with another firm that did ramp me up. I mean, things would have gotten worse for the kids and how they did get, which was bad enough on its own. So yeah, it makes a huge difference. It's the kids that count.
Well, and some people think they're keeping the kids out of the conflict. And at the end of the day, I think the kids see the stress in mom and dad. They see the conflict. They see the financial stress when, a child, I'll take younger kids, I'll take boys as an example. They want some hockey equipment. And because so much money is going out the door to professionals, and it could be therapists, counselors, lawyers, business evaluators, that they can't afford simple things they want to give their kids, and the kids see it. And the kids can probably see the night before court what mom or dad is doing with whomever they're with on that night. And none of that is good for the kids. So
no.
Trying to avoid the conflict is in the best interest, but by the same token, you also can't just wave the white flag with everything, because then in the game of power and control, you're also going to be giving away potentially all the power. And that's the real difficult balancing act that happens, because I know you guys were in a bad place for a while. And what really fascinates me is, how did you go from the bad place you were in of conflict, where you never saw eye to eye on anything, to now all of a sudden phoning me up and saying,
now we're good.
I have the greatest co-parenting relationship. My ex and I are getting along amazing. How did you do that?
Well, there was a catalytic moment that it all came to a head. And I'll indulge me for a few minutes and I'll tell you what happened. You might recall about a year ago, we had a travel motion. I want to take the kids on vacation. And there was, the way I approached it was completely wrong, and it ended up getting us into court over it. And while at the end of the day, 3 days later, I got to take the kids on vacation, about a week or so when we got back, one of them took razor blades to their face and to their arms. And it was from the stress of the conflict. And when that happened, I mean, your whole life crumbles. I mean, everything crumbles. And I remember my ex came out with the car one of the times when I was picking them up. This was in this week or two of the constant self-harm. And she said, listen, maybe we just need to put the conflict aside and deal with this. And I said, great. And that's kind of got us onto that. That was kind of a key moment that got us past all the bickering. And once that was behind us, there's a few tricks that I picked up along the ways on how to communicate with other people. And I had never applied them with my ex, and I should have. And one of those tricks is to understand that nobody's a villain in their own story. I've done what I thought was best for the kids. And if I took on the perspective of, no, I'm right, she's wrong, she's not doing the right thing, or she's not being a good mom, that's completely the wrong way to go about it. Of course she's a good mom. I mean, she didn't set out to be a bad mom. She's doing everything right from her perspective. And we may not parent the same, and that's not the point. So I have to respect the fact that, no, she's actually not a bad person. And of course she loves the kids. And of course she's trying to do the right things for the kids, exact same as me. And as soon as I can get past that, as soon as I can recognize that, that cuts out a lot of the conflict. And the other half of the equation is understanding that when it's a high conflict, people don't hear what you say, or they take things in a different way from how you meant it. And you have to respect how the other person took what you said. So if I say something to my ex and she has a strong reaction to it, I don't believe there's such a thing as an overreaction. She has a strong reaction to it because of our history and everything else. I have to respect the fact, all right, she's got a strong reaction. It's not necessarily what I said, but it's how she understood, how she thought I meant it. And I can't get wrapped up in the, how can you think that? How could you think I said that? That's not what I meant. And you end up arguing about the argument and not about the substance of the argument. And if I learned that if I was able to step back and say, nope, all right, let me fix how I misrepresented what I was trying to say, that goes a long way. And the final thing that I learned was, don't be so caught up in trying to look like the perfect parent that, oh no, everything's great over here. Kids are happy, kids are laughing, I feed them well, we do a lot of activities, things must be crap over on your end. Don't get caught up in that. And as soon as I was able to say, oh yeah, no, I've had a really bad day with one of the kids and this happened, and I think I completely messed up. I think I made a mistake. If I'm able to talk like that to her, that breeds trust. And then I started hearing things that I thought everything was peachy keen over there. No, she's having the exact same problems as what I was having with the kids. And that allowed us to have kind of common ground that we can now, okay, talk about things together. So you have to worry about, you can't get caught up in trying to look better than the other. That's nonsense. And you can't worry about being right, because even though I was right and I took kids out for, that vacation, having one of them cut themselves a week later, I wish I would have been wrong and that hadn't happened. It doesn't matter about being, don't worry about being right. Worry about what's good for the kids, and don't worry about sticking to the order and making sure you get your time and making sure this and making sure that, because that's what's due to you. No, just keep all that stuff aside and do what if you were a kid? What if it's Mother's Day and your kid didn't get mom a present? They'd feel like crap. So get mom a present, for the kids. So putting them first, and empathy with the ex, and being vulnerable, and letting them know when you mess up, and take ownership of that, take responsibility when you mess up, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Now she'll phone me on stuff that she's having issues with, and listen, can you talk to the kids about this? That would never have happened a year ago. We were not seeking help from each other a year ago, and now we are. And if we have a big issue, she'll come over to the house, we'll talk to the kids together about something, and that gets along great. So we can talk about every couple of times a week, we'll talk about the kids, and it's very frank and honest. And that's kind of how it would be if we were still together. We can have those conversations and keep all of our stuff aside. And that got rid of that got rid of a ton of the conflict. I mean, there just isn't any conflict there. I had a massage the other day, and the masseuse said, "Why are you here? There's no tension in your back." That wouldn't have been a thing a year ago. I would have been a ball of nerves. And now I'm good, and she's good, and now the kids are much better. And we noticed within, I think it was about a week after that she had said that, can we just put the conflict aside, that there was a noticeable change in the kids. And it went from, you read all this stuff about how high conflict is hard for the kids, and you read all that, but it's not tangible until you see your kid with cuts on their face. And then you see how within a week of us setting aside our nonsense, that all of a sudden the kids are actually happy and they're getting along. And yeah, they complain now that mom and dad are on the same page and they can't get one over on us. They've actually said that to us. So they complain about that. But we saw within a week or two that it was a world of difference for the kids. And then that intangible, don't do that, becomes real. Like, oh yeah, no, this isn't theoretical. This is true. We've seen it happen. And we had the kids in the horrible crossfire between us. We see that now with hindsight. So yeah, that's the trick. Communication, and don't be afraid to be wrong, because we're all going to be wrong.
Well, I first of all, I have to say, hearing the story about what happened to one of your children is obviously heartbreaking, because nobody wants to see one of their children do what happened in your situation. And you have to give a lot of credit to your ex who came over.
Oh yeah,
the olive branch, and you took the olive branch, and give you credit for taking it, because that's what needed to happen for the best interest of your children. But the message to people who are watching the show to learn from Dave is, don't put yourself in the position that the conflict takes you down the road that the kids are going to start to harm. Better to try and employ what you just described earlier on in the separation. And and the problem is, at the end of the day, you need two people to cooperate, and you got to try and use what you can to, I guess, help your former spouse or your co-parent to cooperate with you. And I think the messages that you're trying to say when people are in conflict are ones that may be worth trying, reaching out with an olive branch, trying to frame things the way you just said, and frame them the way you are, instead of trying to lay blame, and instead of trying to be right, trying to focus on what's best for the kids. And what people watching this have to understand is, to make that work, somebody may reach out to you with an olive branch. And when that former spouse or your co-parent does reach out to you like that, be smart enough to try and take that olive branch, but realize, especially in the early days, reciprocation is important. So for example, I know you said off air, this is supposed to be your weekend with the kids, but there's a family event going on up north, and your ex said, can she take the kids? And you said, sure, not a problem, because the kids would probably be happier where they're going to be this weekend with their mother, because they're going to get a special kind of event.
Yeah, the cousin's going to be up there and everything. And I mean, that's the strength. You have to recognize the strengths that I bring to the table and the strength that she brings to the table. Well, in Toronto, I'm alone. I don't have any family here, but she's got a big family here. And so they get that family connection with her that I can't give. And I would have been insecure about that, a couple of years ago. I would have overcompensated to try and do all this stuff to reserve that time for me because, we're a family here with me. That's all fine. But it's a long weekend. They're going to enjoy the beach with the cousin and the mom and the stepdad over there. So that's fine. I'll do other stuff. It doesn't matter. If I was them, I'd want to go. So,
But the big takeaway that I take from that when I say reciprocation is when somebody comes to you and reaches out with the olive branch and one person tries to take that positive step forward to create the peace, and then a month, 2 months, 6 months later, they phone you up or they text you or they email you, whoever you're communicating, and they say, I have a special event. Is there any way the kids can be with me? You got to remember that if you want to keep that peace, you got to keep the momentum going forward. And that means if they've done some nice things for you, do something nice for them. Because if you say no to it, especially if it's for an arbitrary, unreasonable reason, the likelihood now that peace you're trying to develop is going to take a step back. And odds are the next time you may have a special event or something, they're going to say no to it. So the part that I commend is I think when you're trying to take that off ramp from conflict, for lack of better words, it requires both people to constantly be making the positive steps forward and not going back into the conflict to make that work. And especially in the early days, I would say it's really easy for one side to fall back into that old habit. And for those parents who haven't had the kind of experience you have, I urge them to think about it if they're watching the show, what you must have felt like after your vacation and seeing what happened. And when they want to say no, think about that. And maybe you'll change your mind and want to say yes and work through the problems.
Yeah, there was actually something that you said. One of the best pieces of advice, pivotal pieces of advice that you gave me, it would have been a year and a half ago. It would have been a while ago. Resonated and stuck with me and actually helped solidify this whole cooperative thing. And you had said to me once, you don't get to parent the way you want to parent. You don't get to do your set of rules in your house and have her do her set of rules in that house. You have to compromise and get the two. And I think one of the traps that every parent, including myself, falls into when they initially get divorced and separated is, oh, great, I can parent the kids the way I want. It'll be my rules in my house and I get to fix things that my ex is doing wrong. There's lots of things that my ex and I'm sure, are not on the same page with in terms of parenting rules. But the fact of the matter is you have more restrictions when you're separated than when you're together. Because when you're actually together and you have a difference in parenting, worst case is someone sleeping on a couch. That's it. Worst case now is if you have a difference of opinions is someone ends up in court. And so you do not get to parent the way you want. You have to engage and cooperate with the other person. So there are things that I've had to say, all right, you know what? It's, be it bedtimes or meals or whatever, it's not worth it. It's not worth having your kid cut her face over to have that conflict, to argue about a bloody bedtime or about when homework gets done. It's just not worth it. There's other battles. And not having the conflict far supersedes any of those petty arguments that you have. So there's lots of times it's, what do you think we should do? That, all right, fine, I'll go with that. And she'll say the same thing back to me. Well, what do you think we should do? Well, I think we should do this. All right, cool. And there's lots of give and take. So yeah, don't parent the kids the way you think they should be parented. Parent the kids the way the two of you can do it together. Otherwise, it's going to hurt them. It's going to cause a lot of problems.
Well, the biggest takeaway I heard in what you said is that there has to be give and take. And the problem that all too often happens in the breakdown of a relationship, and sometimes it's the unhealthy dynamic that existed during the marriage. There is one side that has always made the rules about the kids, and the other one during the course of the marriage that just said okay because they were busy with other things and took a secondary role. And then it becomes very hard after the breakdown of the marriage for the one who always made decisions to now realize, well, geez, I need to share these decisions. And it's sort of funny because I've had this discussion with people doing this for a living, obviously. that, and I'm going to be a little gender stereotypical here, but I don't really think the stereotype applies anymore the same way it did 20 years ago. But you take the mother who was the primary caregiver if it was a traditional relationship and she stayed home and the father husband went to work. Mother was used to doing everything with the kids and making every decision. Then they separate, and now all of a sudden the ex-husband is their equal, wants to be their equal time and wants to be an equal say in the decision making. And the mother's like, oh my God, but this has always been my role. This isn't fair. And it's interesting because the guy in that situation has always said to me, but by the same token, I always went to work. I made all the money. I made all the monetary decisions. And I now give half my money to my ex. And she gets to make the decision for her half of the money. So in a way, what happens is the power alignment from a intact relationship to a separated relationship, it changes significantly. And that changes, you have to learn, you don't get to make all the, if you want to make the co-parenting work, you're not going to be able to make all the decisions. Neither will your former spouse. You have to be effective at communicating, and you have to be able to work through those problems. And some of working through them is what you said. And you said it right. There has to be give and take. So yeah, if I think 10 o'clock is a good bedtime and my ex may think 9 o'clock is a good bedtime, it may make sense, for lack of any better words, to just agree on 9:30 for whatever reason it may be, because it's better just to have the consistency than being right or wrong.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And the and I try and put things in perspective. Everything comes down to when there was the cutting going on. Am I willing to do this in exchange for some self-harm with the kids, in exchange for them being miserable? No, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter in the realm of things. Fighting about that kind of stuff. If I could have let my kids stay up till 2 a.m. and have them not cut themselves, I would have chosen that. I mean, that's the easy decision to make. So yeah, and we also have a lot of strengths. We each have our individual strengths, and we've come to the point where she knows where her strengths are. I mean, super nice mom, really cares for the kids. I mean, they really feel loved with her. And my strengths are kind of some of the mental health things and the communication. And we both have our strengths. And so we let those shine in the decisions that come through. That's kind of happened organically. I'll take on the role with the mental health stuff, and she takes on the role with the weekends and the funds and that kind of. We have our strengths, and you have to let the other person be really good. Because nobody wants their kid to hate the other parent. Well, if you're a good parent, you don't want them to hate the other parent. I mean, that doesn't work. Can you imagine how you would feel if you disliked your mother or your father? It's a horrible feeling. You want to like them because you're a piece of them. So you have to nurture that. Help them really like mom. Help them really like dad, and then everything gets along.
Well, you're right with everything you said. And I also get back to the point you said earlier, which is the kids being a little frustrated now. They can't pull a fast one on one, and they can't play you off against one another, because if mom and dad aren't communicating, it makes it a lot easier for the kids to play the game of going back and forth and getting.
And I've got a perfect example that happened today. Well, in the past, when we had high conflict, kids would tell me one thing, but they tell the mom something completely different. So I look like I'm making it up. Then OCL gets involved to find out what the real story is, and I feel like a fool because no, I'm telling you, they've been saying this to me for 2 weeks, and they give mom a completely different story. And so mom thinks, rightfully so, that I'm a liar, I've manipulated them or whatever. Of course she's going to think that, because they're giving her the exact opposite story, and I'm not going to believe her. But just today, we found a thing where I was talking to my daughter over the weekend, and she said she wanted to do this. And then mom went to her today, and the daughter gave her like a complete 180 story, completely opposite of what I was told. I sent mom the text, said, listen, this is what she said. And now we can laugh about it, say, oh yeah, teenagers, we both get completely conflicting stories between one another. This is within 48 hours. And in the past, it's probably completely normal for a kid. And if you were high conflict, that would have been a conflict. No, she said this. No, she said that. But because we can talk and say, no, we're being played. That's what's going on. And so now we can joke. Now we'll find out. My daughter will tell me something that she lied to mom about. And I'll say, did you know that she did this? And she'll laugh. And then I'll find out something she lied to me about. So now we're getting the true story now, because we can actually talk, and we're not being defensive about it or accusing the other side of some foul play.
Well, that's going to make for better children when they know they can't get away with these games.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and I probably said it to you at some point, is that when children say they want something that aligns with your interests, and we're hearing that they say something different to the other parent, we regularly say kids want to be happy.
Yeah.
And when kids want to be happy, and they want their mother to be happy, and they want their father to be happy, it means they think that the way they're achieving happiness may be by keeping everybody else happy. And that's telling dad what dad wants to hear and telling mom what mom wants to hear.
I know that's what happened in the past. And then the problem that happens is decisions are made and they feel guilty about decisions that are made that are maybe contrary to what's actually best. That was one of the things that contributed to my daughter cutting herself, was she was feeling guilt because we had made arrangements to do things based on things that I had heard that weren't really in line with what she wanted, but she was telling me what I thought I wanted to hear or whatever. And it causes problems. They start feeling guilt because they can see post that, after they've manipulated the parents a certain way and the conflict, they will feel the guilt over it. And that's how they're going to cope with it. They're going to cope with that pain by inflicting other types of pain on themselves. And that was very much a part of what happened.
And some kids they won't necessarily say to either parent what they want to hear, but what they will want to be is completely and utterly fair. And for some children, what that means is no matter how impractical the schedule may be, they view it as it should be equal time, period, end of story, because in their mind, that's the way of not hurting mom and not hurting dad. And the thing that we often forget is that children are children. And it's amazing. I see this in the legal process. You were involved with the Office of the Children's Lawyer. They get involved to hear what the children's views and preferences are. I often think, I mean, I'm not a judge, but I often think there's too much weight given to children's views and preferences, because that actually empowers
it hurts them. Yeah.
And then what it does is it turns parents, regrettably, into lobbying the children to align with their position, which isn't what they need. What children need is they need parents who are guiding them, parents who are teaching them. And if the two of you can co-parent and you're not worried about the decisions you make ending up in a courtroom or in an affidavit, and you're worried about a decision, not how it appears in court, but the best decision is, like you said, being able to admit to your ex, you know, that was a really bad weekend. I had this piece of conflict and my child is struggling with this. You know, I wanted to give you a heads up because she's going to be, or he's going to be coming back and you need to deal with this. And if the two of you can work together on those kind of issues, your kids are going to be so much better off for it, because that's what children need. The children don't need to have mom and dad lobbying for them. What they need is mom and dad to be mom and dad and being teachers, instructors, and guiding them in the right direction of life. And too often divorce takes that away from parents. I see that we're just about out of time, Dave, and I know the producer said to you before the show, it goes very fast. I think it's gone very fast. And I take this show as a more uplifting show than many others, because it's nice to hear that you've been a success story for you and your ex. And I really do wish that everyone else can have this kind of success going forward. I wish you and your family and your ex nothing but the best. And I do appreciate you coming on and sharing this. The next Ask Andrew show is on June the 16th at 8:00 p.m. If you have any requests or ideas on future shows, please do as Dave did and email us at info@feldsteinfamilylaw.com. And Dave, I really want to thank you for joining us today. It really is much appreciated.
It was fun. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a great night.
Thanks.